Welcome to Parenting Unscripted. I am your host, Katie Collette, and boy, do we have an episode for you today. This is a hot topic. We're going to be talking about something that's newer, maybe sometimes a little bit frustrating element when it comes to parenting, and that is artificial intelligence. Love it or hate it, my friends, it is here. And it could even be here in ways that you are not aware of. So that is why we have a tech expert with us today. This is Kat Erickson. Kat is an author and tech expert. Kat, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So there are so many different ways to approach AI and create a safe environment for our children. And the key there is the safe environment. So I'm so thankful that you agreed to be on this show with us today. Artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT, it's everywhere. So why don't we begin with the basics? Because of course, there are some things that I don't think people even realize are actually AI. Can you help us at the base level and we'll build from there?
Sure. Even if you simply Google something now, what you'll see at the top of the page is an AI generated response. So what's happening is that these tech companies are training on large amounts of data so that they can provide automated responses to questions and searches. And for the kids, that could be anything from why is the sky is blue to how do I answer this homework question?
Oh, yes. So what would you say are the most common forms? I understand, when you type in something with a search engine, you're going to get that AI response. What are some of the most common forms of AI that our kids are talking about right now that would be helpful for us to understand what they're called and how we get to them and see them?
Sure. So ChatGPT is, of course, the most popular, the one that everyone knows about. Claude, Google's Gemini are really right up there and very competitive with ChatGPT. But any app that you're using most likely has an AI chat component at this point, whether it's your health insurance app, shopping on Amazon, everything has some form of what we call conversational AI built into it.
How would you say that AI is different from traditional software that we would use?
Sure. When it comes to kids, I think about social media.
Yeah.
And you can set some hard lines with social media. You can use it when you're this age, you'll have this type of account, and we'll have this insight into it. You can do that to some extent with AI, but AI is so pervasive that it's really built into so many things that kids are using, some of them incredibly helpful. Kids learn in many different ways, and AI can really adapt to how kids learn. But really, it's how pervasive AI is that kind of separates it from how we set rules with text messaging, social media, group chats, and things like that.
When you say that it's really pervasive, that kind of goes into my next question that I had for you is, what do parents really need to pay close attention to when it comes to AI right now? So can you explain to us a little bit more in what ways it's pervasive and how we as parents can watch out for some things that could be concerning?
Sure. AI is conversational AI like Claude or ChatGPT is really trying to keep the conversation going, whether it's a kid asking the question or a parent. So you get an answer and then, would you like me to continue with this? So anything that the kid wants to talk about, there's an answer for. We can only handle so many questions per day as parents. ChatGPT simply does not get tired. So what we need to do is start thinking about how we set boundaries. So the first thing I would say is, just like with social media or text messaging, you have to decide early where that privacy line is. Mm-hmm. Will you monitor all communications? Will you set some boundaries around it? Are we going to trust kids implicitly? These are decisions each family should make, but it shouldn't be hidden from the kids. Having them understand what the expectations are is a good starting point. And then with everything, the rules can change based on a situation, and they need to know that. The second thing I would say is that with these conversational AI apps, you can usually shape how the kids use it. You can set what they call custom rules or custom prompts.
Hmm.
And those are rules that you set before and that are active for all conversations. In our house, it's instructed to understand they're answering questions in an age appropriate way. We'd like them to insert learning opportunities into all conversations. And some types of conversations are off limits, or the system should say, this is something that you should probably talk to your parents about instead of AI.
So how explain for parents who are like, okay, that sounds great. How do I do
Yeah,
that, Kat?
sure. If you go into ChatGPT, bottom left corner,
Mhm.
there's a little settings and it's a custom instruction. And if you Google, how do I set custom instructions for whichever conversational AI app your family has chosen to use, it'll detail those questions. There's also a little automation that's coming or built into some of the models now where it's going to do a better job detecting if they're talking to a child and ensuring that they're providing age appropriate responses and blocking conversations that are getting a little too serious for the age of the kid that they're talking to.
Could you give us an example maybe of why that is so necessary now? I mean, what AI is still relatively new in a way, but we've heard some, some stories about different things that have happened on AI.
Yeah, and I don't think that we should sugarcoat what those were. There were cases last year where young adults that committed suicide had long running discussions with conversational AI in advance. These models are young, this technology is young.
Mhm.
So it wasn't previously trained to detect these things, to point towards help. It was trained to keep the conversation going. And that turned out to be detrimental to some kids. Even today, we see studies showing how some kids develop really strong attachments to the conversational AI systems. It's something in their life that is fully supportive, that never questions the truth of what the kid is saying. Their feelings are
Yeah.
always valid. And that's very comforting, but it only goes so deep. It lacks the true deep emotional connection that kids can get from friends and family. And that's the conversation you really have to keep having with kids throughout the years.
Yeah, I think that is a really important tip for everybody. When we get to the other side of the break here with Kat Erickson, we are going to talk more about the type of data that AI collects and a little bit more about how we as parents can protect our kids and also enjoy this together because there is a lot to learn from it. We will be right back. Stay with us.
Whether you're already working in education or aspiring to, then say yes to NPS. Norfolk Public Schools are currently hiring in the following positions. NPS offers the highest salaries and sign-on bonuses in Hampton Roads, plus a work lifestyle you'll love. Say yes to NPS.
Welcome back to Parenting Unscripted, where we are continuing our conversation with author and tech expert Kat Erickson. We are focused all on artificial intelligence today. I've already learned a lot in our first 8 minutes, so we're going to keep it going right now with Kat. Kat, I want to talk a little bit more about privacy when it comes to AI and what kind of data is collected when we use these AI tools, what kind of data on our children and on us is collected. So how is that happening? How's it being collected? And in what ways can it be protected?
I think it's safe to assume that any data that can be collected absolutely is being collected. It may not be tied to your name. Most systems use a unique identifier, but this can always be tied back to the email account that the account was registered with. You might think that's just questions and answers, but that's going to include where you're asking these questions from geographically, what type of system that you're using. This is probably sold to other marketing groups that know what your last Amazon purchase search was, what you're looking at on Facebook and social media. There is a very data-driven, in-depth view of you as a user. That might be for offering promoted items when you're searching for something, but you also think data breaches can happen, and everything that has been collected has the potential to be included in a breach.
And for some who don't fully understand that, or they're like, the likelihood of that happening to me is not that big. So if they want to hear that I would like to have a new puffer vest with an electric heater in it, some people will shout that at their phones a few times and they magically pop up. Why is that such a big deal in the end? Should there be a data breach? What information could be used or stolen that could impact your life or the life of your child?
I think it's important that the data that you share about you is your choice to share. Whether it's what color puffer jacket that you like, or what learning disability that you're looking for, what accommodations might be available for. As an example, what if a life insurance company in the future is buying this data and having a 50-year view of you as a person to make a decision on whether you'll get long-term insurance or not? That's just hyperbole, but it's definitely not out of the realm of what people are thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a really just a great way to put that, because that's something I know myself included, I wouldn't even have ever thought of that. But boy, when you really need something potentially down the road and all of a sudden you're like, how did you get all that information? Well, it's because they're kind of electronic ears seemingly listening at all times. Is it really, again, just going back to those custom settings, or you can say, all right, you can't listen to this, or this information can't be taken, and that's why it's important?
Yeah, it's a hard boundary to think through, because you need to be able to ask private questions. Do I need to go to the doctor for this? How do I think about this? How do I ask for help? These are things that AI is very good at helping with. When you're thinking about children's use of AI, I recommend that you turn off private or incognito chats. What those do is enable kids to have completely private conversations. You ask the questions, you get the answers, those chats go away and they're never seen again. I think the parents should consider turning those off, because we need to understand how kids are using AI. We need to respect that they might ask private questions that they don't want to discuss with us, but those shouldn't be secrets with AI.
How can we see that history ourselves then?
So you can disable the incognito private chats, and that just ensures that doesn't happen. And otherwise, there'll be a log, usually on these systems, it's kind of a left side pane that when it's expanded, you can see the history of these conversations. Our kids, when maybe at dinner we say, I saw that you created this really cool Star Wars story in ChatGPT. The pictures that you generated were so interesting. Usually they want to tell you a lot about it. When kids are a little bit older, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems.
Right.
I imagine this is a harder conversation to have, but it's about setting the right boundaries while also respecting their need to explore certain topics.
You answered my question about how we could possibly make this a more, positive and supportive tool for our kids. I think that that's great advice, to chat with them around the table to say, hey, I noticed that you did this. Is there anything when it comes to making it more positive or supportive that you'd like to point out?
Yes, I go back to the custom prompts there. I want the kids' experience to be positive and supportive, and you can simply say that in those custom prompts. AI generally is trained to be positive and supportive. What you also might want to do is be careful not to want your AI to be too positive or too supportive. We recently dealt with a situation where I wasn't sure how to handle it with the school. And I started the question as a parent with AI saying, let's not sugarcoat anything. I may have made a mistake or two, but I need advice on what I'm dealing with. And by doing that, it was very clear. Yes, some mistakes were made. We need to support this person. Here are some things you need to think about and some steps you might consider. And that helped me have a more unbiased feedback from the system.
That's amazing. Are there any common mistakes that you see parents or adults making with AI right now, other than not setting custom settings, perhaps?
I think just ignoring that it's happening.
Yes.
Just, recommending its use too much. It could help with any homework question. It can do any homework question, but you don't want to use it for give me the answers to this. As a parent, if I'm busy, I might say, can you check this homework? Or, sometimes you get these homework questions and you think, how do they even come up with this? I have no idea what this is asking.
Yes.
And that's another great use for ChatGPT. But I think pretending like it doesn't exist is not good. And I think barring the children from using it is also not good. There is so much that kids can learn that they are curious about, and it is an unbelievable source for letting kids explore those curiosities.
Kat, when we get back from this next break, I do want to touch more about how AI is being used in schools and ways that we can make sure that it's being used properly and as a positive tool. So stick with us, everyone. We are going to be right back with Kat Erickson, where we will continue our conversation about AI and its impact on our children. And we are back here on Parenting Unscripted, where we continue our conversation about artificial intelligence. And right now we continue it with Kat Erickson, who is our author and tech expert. Kat, we were talking about AI and its use in schools. So why don't we just push right into that, because we've noticed quite a bit now that AI is used a lot in schools, to the point where I know even in my son's school, the teachers are trying to keep them off of the computers a bit because they're finding that, the artificial intelligence is correcting when they write. So they're not necessarily learning to spell and use grammar properly. How would you say that AI is appropriate for use in schools, and maybe in what ways should it be avoided?
I think there's a time and place for everything. If we're focused on writing and grammar, then you're right. It's not a good time for AI. I think that over the next couple of years, we'll see a lot of tools that support different aspects of a kid's IEP. It's so much easier today for kids with special needs to be assisted by technology and for them to assimilate more easily into the classroom. Dysgraphia is an example where kids, you can't really read their handwriting. It's not something that training or support can fix, but it's common to have a computer in the classroom now. The ability to type helps these kids feel less singled out. You'll see new supportive technologies for autism. The prevailing idea is always correct or always progressing support for questions. This is an incredible use of AI.
Yeah.
Custom learning, where I think Physics Walla is a company out of India that started this a couple years ago, where it adapts the educational curriculum to the person that's learning it at that moment.
Wow.
You don't want to use AI to take shortcuts, but we had the same argument with calculators before. And in the workplace, calculators are there. So there'll be some adaptation that happens over time. But if you think about math, you have to get the basics down before you learn algebra, because it's a combination of all the basics. And once you take trigonometry and calculus, you really need the basics from those courses before to put things together. You don't want to take away the critical thinking per subject that you need for higher levels of education. We still have to prepare these kids for, the critical thinking per topic that's needed to succeed.
Right.
And so I think it absolutely makes sense to limit AI in many cases in schools.
Do you feel like, though, learning how to properly use it is key, because no matter what, it's here. So we're going to be moving forward with it more than likely in our lives, because we already are.
Yes, there's always, though, a temptation to get away with something small.
Yeah.
I think that guiding its use, showing kids how powerful it is in certain circumstances is really important, and making sure that they understand how important it is to be able to convert, improper fractions to mixed numbers they're going to need to use that in life. And so they need to have a repetition in practicing it that provides them the skills they need to be successful.
Kat, for parents who are just overwhelmed by it all, and they're like, how can I possibly keep up with another element of technology for my child? What reassurance can you give them when it comes to AI and making a safe atmosphere for our kids?
Everything's overwhelming until you jump into it, whether it's learning how to swim or calculus or AI for your kids. There are tools out there that are kid specific conversational AI. There are ways to go into ChatGPT and set up a parent and child account. You can hit the easy button on some of these things, but I would say just start talking about it. Your kids can educate you as much as you can educate them on these things, and just keep the conversation open. There's nothing more important than making sure there's an open line of communication for all of these topics. So when things do get harder, they're already practiced at talking to you about it.
You know, a friend of ours came over and we haven't really used ChatGPT in the way that she was using it. And she was like, listen, I can have a whole conversation with this thing. And it sounds like it is a real person on the other end. Like the computer sounds like it's processing thought and answering. And I feel like while that sounds cool, it can be confusing to our kids. So especially some of the younger kids too. How can we emphasize to them like, hey, that's not a person on the other end. This is really just a computer.
Right. I think that we don't have to think of it as a person. As adults, we can find little use cases that are really far away from that. I take a picture of my grocery list and I say, sort this by where things are in the grocery store. Saves me 15 minutes of running back and forth around the store.
That's amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Don't treat it like a person. It's not a person.
Yep.
And it's not there to support your feelings. It is a machine, and machines don't care about your feelings.
That's a really great point. It's a machine. It does not care about your feelings. We do. We're the people in your life. I do want to talk really quickly about positives and negatives. What would you say are some of the most positive impacts of AI in our lives?
It supports curious learners. It provides different ways to understand topics that may not be available to kids that didn't learn how to read in the normal ways, that are more visual or more, want to read more. It supports any type of learner. Their creative options in generating images and seeing the world that they're imagining in their minds is so interesting to watch.
What would you say is the biggest concern or possibly negative that you really want parents to watch out for?
It is just more screen time, let's be honest.
Yeah.
We always want our kids to be the angels, but they could be the ones generating unwanted images of classmates. You have to make sure that they're not acting impulsively. It could do their homework for them. This is not something that you want. You want them to use these tools for good, because when they're an adult, you want them to take jobs where they're using AI for good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Kat Erickson, thank you so much for joining us today. This was such a great conversation, and I know that everybody watching right now has learned a lot. We appreciate your time.
Sure. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Parenting Unscripted. Remember, you can watch new episodes of Parenting Unscripted every Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock right here on Wavy Plus. I thank you so much for once again joining us today. You be good.